And so, this game was developed by the French video game studio Asobo Studios. They have been doing licensed games ever since they started in 2002, but they have made some big games, including Zoo Tycoon Ultimate Animal Collection, as well as the latest project being Microsoft Flight Simulator. So as you can see, this opening cutscene plays out in real time with in-game graphics. Yes, this was something that was attempted in the early 2000s during the PS2 era, but it really became standard during the Xbox 360 era. But it's not just the opening cutscene that plays out in real time. No, the entire level select is set in Bonnie's room, underneath her bed. It's actually pretty cool because the camera pans down under it. And while this intro was pretty well made and really showcased what type of game this is going to be, the tutorial level is dreadfully boring. It's supposed to be the opening scene of the movie, but instead of it being great and exciting, it just falls flat and it's just so boring. Seriously, it's a train that's about to drive off a cliff, and yet it never actually does. It's just a 3D model with a static 2D background. Everything that's supposed to be big and grand, it just becomes so little, so boring. So this game is a collective fun platformer. You're running around the stage and you're getting to the end. However, unlike other collective funs, the collective fun aspect varies from level to level. In a few levels, it's a part of the level, whereas in other levels, it's the end goal. Every collective fun level plays out the same way. You have a small area around you, and you are supposed to look around, solve a few puzzles, and to find whatever it is that you're looking for. As for the case in this level, you were supposed to find your friends that somehow escaped into the garage, despite being in a box that was going to Sunside Daycare. Why they hid, I have absolutely no idea. Anyway, aside from the main collectibles on this level, there are also some side collectibles. You're breaking wooden blocks to collect stars, you're collecting 8 various objects which is scattered throughout this level, and as well as 2 additional objects which then interacts with the environment. There's 2 of them on each level, and honestly they can be kinda tough to find, because they aren't really that apparent when you're running around. But you can find them if you're looking close enough. So, judging from that description, you would expect just a mediocre 3D platformer. And yes, this game is rather simple. It actually does do a lot of things right. First off, the soundtrack. Yeah, seriously, this soundtrack is so great. It was created specifically for this game, which is odd considering the soundtrack to this franchise is pretty iconic. Yes, they made their own soundtrack, and you know, it's actually not half bad. There's a bunch of orchestrated music along with acoustics. It actually sounds really good, I'm not gonna lie there. I also love the graphics in this game. There's a lot of detail in each and every level. You could definitely tell that each and every object in this game was rendered one by one. So they just copy-pasted a lot of things. Every object has its own unique animation, its own look. And this game just overall pretty damn good. The best part is during the sun, when you can see the sunlight at the dawn. That is when these graphics shine at their greatest. But of course, like everything you love, you also have to look at the flaws. And there are plenty of flaws in this game when it comes to the animations. Yep, while this game looks pretty good and plays really well, some of these animations are just lazy. Like for instance, there's a part in this game where you're swinging across a gap as Woody with his pull string. Do you know what they do? They just repeat the same animation twice. This isn't the only thing that happens. There are plenty of moments where the animation is just repeated or it is just unimpactful. I'm talking of course about the vacuum cleaner on the 4th level. You are supposed to be hanging onto it as it falls down. But since there's no force feedback or any sort of effect that actually happens when you fall down, it just becomes so shallow and boring to look at. Everyone knows that the original Toy Story is criticized these days for being dated. Now that's excusable since that was the first feature-length film. Now I don't know if it's because there was a hardware limitation or because Asobo Studios wanted this game to be authentic to the original movie. These human character models, as well as several other areas on Uncanny Valley. Well, first up, these character models just looks like Play-Doh. And then you're accompanying their Play-Doh skin along with those empty eyeballs, and they're just coming off as puppets rather than actual humans. Yeah, sure, that works on the toys since they are toys, but like I said, it doesn't look good for humans. So now you might be asking yourself, what exactly is the format of this game? Well, I'll tell you that, my friends. This is a retelling of this movie after the events has already happened. Which is also why you see drawings before each and every level, because Rex has drawn them to remember these events. And naturally, since this game is meant to be more atmospheric, there are a few things that had to be sacrificed. Like for instance, on the screen there are almost no icons, and they only appear when you're collecting things. And then there's no health bar, and you cannot take any damage. And there's also a severe lack of boss fights. Now you might be asking, what's even the point of this game? Is there really a reason to have a game where you can never lose? Yeah, I would say there is actually a reason for this game to exist. There are just plenty of games out there which is wide, intense, has like an enormous difficulty, and this is generally not something that everyone can get behind. Well, Toy Story 3 on the PlayStation 2 is a sort of game where you can just turn off your brain and just play for a few minutes. You just feel satisfied. And hey, just because there's a lack of attacking enemies, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that can hurt you in this world. It's due to the lack of enemies that lets this game stay on its own and just breathe out. Everything that you can take damage from in this world are just mundane regular objects. Well, mundane to you and me, but quite dangerous to a toy. So if you want to play a video game that is based on the movie that stays true to the original but is also able to do its own thing, then Toy Story 3 for the PSP and PS2 is the perfect game for you. It may has its flaws, but what game doesn't? And the same can be said about this video. But hey, I'm human, I'm not perfect. No one is.